and welcome to Into the Light. I'm your host, Edina Mauvana. Today we have Luis Penate. Lou shares his inspirational journey from escaping persecution in Cuba to building a multi-million dollar company in the US. He is the host of Lou Living Live podcast, where he has thought-provoking conversations on life stories and controversial topics with guests from various backgrounds. He wants to share his message to the world to help inspire and motivate others to make the best of their opportunities. Thank you so much, Lou. I'm so glad to have you. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Like I was talking to you earlier, off camera, this is my first interview as the interviewee and not the host. So it's always exciting and nice, and hopefully what I bring to the conversation can either shape somebody's life or maybe at least make some kind of thought-provoking something in their head. It kind of makes the gears turn a little bit.
Totally. Well, I imagine you have that because I mean, I know I reached out to you because it sounded like you had such an inspirational story coming out of Cuba and building and building. And I think a lot of people like are having just difficult transitions in life and having to overcome obstacles. And certainly your story of persecution and all of that is something that should be shared with the world, right?
And
um,
I think it's also a trending subject also with what we're going through the country right now with this mass immigration to kind of hear from different perspectives because for me it's weird. I understand trying to limit illegal immigration because we don't know who's coming in, but at the same time, how do I not afford the same right or privilege that was afforded to me and my family coming in here and giving us the opportunity from scratch to do something and create something like we've done and we have. So it's a weird thing. But yeah, basically I was born in Cuba, left the country almost at 8, went to live in South Africa for almost 2 years with my father. He was in a missionary, he was in a mission as a doctor, as a Cuban doctor. After living there 2 years, we're gonna send us back to Cuba without any guarantees for anything. And so my dad decided to sell everything. We went and escaped the Cuban government from South Africa. And we went to Holland, then Spain, then Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Costa Rica. And then we got here to Miami in 2001. Throughout the whole ordeal, we had to, not like every, but a lot of immigrant stories. We had to cross borders. We were smuggled through a couple different borders, fake documents, all just to try and get here because the US affords specifically Cubans or people from communist countries the right to just come here. As soon as you come here, the law says we're granted rights. Whether you agree with that or not, that's a different subject, but that's what happened. And when we got here, my father was basically tasked with having to redo his whole medical license. All when my mother worked through from Monday through Sunday, cleaning hotels, houses. I tell this to everybody, at 8 years old, sorry, at 9 years old, by myself, I would go to school, close the house, and then come back by myself, cook myself eggs. Kind of like the story, I was forced to grow up fast from necessity. And my mother
yes.
walked all the time, and my father basically spent his whole time studying and working just so he can renew his medical license. Once he did, we moved to New York. So we went from Miami to Las Vegas for 2.5 years. Then we moved to New York for his residency. And then after 3 years residency, we came to Miami and we've been here ever since for 18 years.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, now you have your roots in Miami, it sounds like. Yeah, that's amazing. You sounded like you had just moved a lot as a kid, your first, few years of life, 18 as a child. I can relate. I actually moved around a lot with my father and we were living in different places like every 2 years. I went to like 9 different schools. I mean, it was all in the United States, but yeah, it's like when kids have to grow up too fast, or you have to like over your parent yourself basically, or take over because you're in a lock key home, or you're just not, parents are not able to be there. And a lot of times for when we were having difficult childhood, people don't have, they've had to learn, especially I feel like a lot of change makers or people who come from like rough and tough backgrounds who've had to overcome so much obstacles. It really contributes to that sense of being driven to create something and move forward from the difficult background, right?
I
So I know
agree, and
that's a
I
big
think
part of
part
it.
of it that's the reason why I even to this day I wake up and even when I'm not motivated, I'm like I gotta do something about it. And
Oh.
I went back to Cuba in 2019, and I went and saw the area where I was living. and it made me cry a little bit. So I
Mm,
actually shed some tears because perspective, right? So I thought to myself, man, I could have been here complaining about how the system is not giving me any opportunities, how my life has been wasted away. Instead, I get to live in this country, even though we constantly criticize our system, our government,
mm,
or our leaders, we get to live in a society that, number one, we get to say what we want without real consequences. And when real consequences, I don't mean economic consequences. I mean imprisonment. I mean being killed. You also have an opportunity to grow and have a business in communist countries like Cuba and or Korea. Your business is not yours ever. And so
mm.
it made me shed a tear, just the perspective of, man, we could have been there. Instead, here we are. We have all this energy, we have all this time, opportunity to make something. And that's why I'm very proud not only of what I and my family have been able to accomplish, but I'm also very proud of this country and the opportunity it provides to all its citizens. So it's whenever there's political debate as far as opportunity or race, it's always a weird thing for me because I am a living example of if you just give us an opportunity, right? And we
Yeah.
have the chance to work, we can make something out of it. And this is something my family and I have done already here, so we know it can be done.
Yeah, amazing. And I think the biggest thing that you get out of, or you have to get out of, is that victim mentality. And like you said, you go back and you reflect on, instead of blaming and shifting, oh, this is so bad. And like it takes you into that negative. But instead, if you come out in this, yeah, with gratitude and not being the victim and being empowered with how you have what you have now. And I just love that because I'm also from an immigrant family, so my dad would always say,
Where are you
you know,
from?
it's not, well, my father's from Croatia,
Okay.
Yugoslavia. Yeah, and my mom is Canadian originally, but she comes from like the real Nordic, like Canada, where it's like there's no running water and stuff like up there in the old country. And so like my dad would always say it's the best country in the world. Like it's not perfect, but America being that, and having the opportunity to create and not be shut down or live under these repressive governments. I think we all carry that if we've come from an immigrant situation. And yeah, I'm just curious about how you've turned it around. Like I know I read in the intro, creating a multi-million dollar company, your podcast. Tell me a little bit about the Lou Living Live podcast. Like I know you're having different controversial topics, but who are you bringing onto your show and what made you do that specifically?
So the podcast came out of my desire to just talk. Let's start with that. I love talking.
Okay.
I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life to just basically selling. As an insurance agency, my first real job as a salesperson was an insurance salesman at 22. And so I spent from 22 to 27, almost 28, just basically selling policies to customers. And
Hmm.
so it really kind of made me very comfortable in speaking to people, really expressing myself. And so it came about just I wanted a channel so I can really express myself, put my thoughts into sound. And then I really think part of the reason I want to have different types of guests is really the type of tension we see in the US right now, where everybody's kind of scared to talk to differing opinions. And I am such a person that I wish you disagree with me. Not so I can convince you, but so we can have a real conversation. I always say that most people align more in the middle. If you take a group of three people, let's say a Republican, a right, an independent, a centrist, and a left, a liberal, and you ask them faith and good faith, you have an interviewer asking good in faith questions. 10 questions, 7 out of 8, 10 questions, people are going to align regardless because we all care about the same thing, right? So
Mm,
socioeconomics, we want to make sure we have a good opportunity to make money. We want to make sure our family's safe. We want to make sure we have freedom of expression. We want to make sure we have freedom in our possessions. And but the way I see the U.S. right now is that everybody's attacking everybody. It's all about how do we create division, clickbait, attack each other. And so what I like to do is I want to hear somebody with a differing opinion to see if I can pick something up from them and then give my rebuttal, my opinion to see if they can pick something up from us. Because usually in that conversation, we'll realize, okay, we're more alike than we actually think, what the media is actually feeding us. And maybe we should stop fighting each other and come to some kind of compromise in the middle, and everybody will be happy. But
right.
instead, we get these like pundits where it's all bad, 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 and you're wrong, I'm right. And that's not how the world works. Being a citizen of the world has really taught me that if you want to be in peace with all types of people, you have to make a little bit of compromises in areas you might not feel comfortable about. And so
Mhm.
that's where the whole podcast came in. I want to have controversial topics. I want to have controversial guests, not for clickbait, but rather to bridge that divide in communication. Not divide in agreement, communication. We're not going to agree on everything, but we can definitely at least sit down and have a conversation to see if we can come up with a solution.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a tall order that you're taking on with that mission because like you said, it's all clickbait and divisive and but really I really respect that genuine mission to have like a common ground or establish communication as the first way to build bridges and tackle controversy. And we do need more and more of that as the world is expanding. Like I know you mentioned being a global citizen and I feel like so much of the work we're doing is kind of deconstructing the barriers of the other people who are othered. And it's like, no, we can no longer sustain these divisions, these illusions of separation that are between us and like, oh, that religion or that tribe or that culture, they're the enemy and it's like all of that is being mantled right
When
now.
chaos is
Yeah.
being fed at this level, I have this saying, when something doesn't make sense, somebody's making money from it. So that's usually the rule law of life. If does something doesn't make sense, somebody created that rule to benefit them. And I really feel like just having everybody argue with each other is done for so somebody else can do their business hiding.
Yeah.
And we should eliminate that. But that's really why I made the podcast. As far as my business life, I really have to give the credit to my parents, my father, my mother, and kind of why I like sharing myself. I'm supposed to be, I don't know if I can curse or not, but I'm supposed to be the failure in the family. So what do I mean by that? My brother's a
Supposed to
doctor.
be.
My brother's a doctor. My sister is an A+ student. I was a student that was good up until I got to college and I had too much freedom. I abused it. And I say this, I was spoiled. I came from nothing then to my parents establishing a business. They gave me too much, good car, paid my college, gave me
Oh.
a monthly amount, and I basically ended up going to college, partying, doing nothing, dropping out. And then at 21, my father gave me an alternative. He said, you either work and pay rent or you get out, or the other us, you go to school and you're going to pay the school and you're going to show me your grades. I said, I'm not going to do. So he kicked me out. And I still have this letter to this day that my dad wrote me at 21, where he said that he loved me and he was making the decision for the best of me. And that even though it broke his heart, he was doing it so I can learn a lesson. And man, it was the best lesson I ever learned.
Oh.
You know, at 22, almost 23, he gave me the opportunity to work for him. And so to kind of explain what we do, my father's a doctor and we have medical centers in South Florida. I say now we have medical centers. When we started, we are a little clinic like this,
Oh, wow.
with me, my mom, my dad, and now my wife, who used to be the first medical assistant, running it with 50 clients, 50 patients. He gave me that opportunity, and that's why I said I'm very pro giving people opportunities, even if they mess up, because for me it was like a click. Like there's just one day I woke up at 23 and I was just like, why am I not trying? Why am I not actually like putting my effort into getting something done? And it's been that process and that support group for me that has given me the consistency to get to where I am right now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
to actually try, to actually study, to actually interact, to actually wake up early, to actually work weekends, to actually
Mm-hmm.
research my stuff. And it just goes to show, like, if you really want to do something, it's up to you. Nobody else can put in your mind that you have to decide to get up and actually do stuff. It's completely up to you. And so now, at the point I'm in right now, I've been successful as a cascading effect of the opportunities presented to me, of the effort I did in my 20s. And now at 32, almost 33, I'm now seeing that effort come into fruition. And like I put in the bio, last year was the first year that my company went over 1 million. And this year we're going to cross that multi-million dollar in revenue. So I'm extremely excited about that, not only because now I can actually give my family opportunity as well, but the amount of employees we have. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would have one or two employees. For me now we have over 40. And so
Wow.
it's a blessing not only for myself, but towards the employees that we have, the opportunities we can give them. And again, to anybody watching or listening in, just pick something, start it, try it, fail a bunch of times, and keep going. And more importantly than anything, I think before you do that, you need a strong support system if you're not somebody who can kind of self-reflect and keep going. Because I could have given up many times, but again, thanks to my parents, my wife, which I give a lot of the credit to, I am in the position I'm in today.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like you're reaping the reward from your all your work in your 20s, and now you're getting so much of that coming to fruition and also benefiting the lives of your employees by being able to help them support families. So that's amazing the way that it's been able to scale. Did you feel like you had at any point like your lowest point, or people like to talk about how they pulled through the challenges and really had transformational journey, maybe spiritually or religion or coming to come to God moment or dark night? Like, is there any points where you really were at kind of like a rock bottom place or things weren't working and then you were able to kind of turn it around and get onto this right track that brought you here?
I don't think it's like necessarily like one aha moment. It's been
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of little aha moments. In particular, maybe two or three. One I told you at 23,
Yeah.
where it was one of those weekends where I was getting up at 9 something, 10 in the morning, going to office, leaving at 3. And my father was at that point where he was getting a little annoyed with me because again, I gave you another opportunity and you're just kind of like doing whatever. And for some reason that weekend, I just I said I'm gonna try and I woke up at 8. So that was one of my aha moments. A bunch of the other aha moments has actually been in the contrary. So at 27, 28, I had to alternate the way I did things because I was working about 80 hours a week for about 4 years and also going to school. And I had a couple panic attacks, which had
Mm-hmm.
never happened to me in my life. And it was just like the overwhelming stress of trying to succeed, trying to get things right, trying to get like the number of sales that I was supposed to hit my goals. And all those moments have been a teaching moment for me to upgrade and improve. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what most people kind of fail whenever they see a problem, it forces them to quit. As opposed to me now at this point, whenever I see a problem, I see it as an opportunity to either shift or grow. Whenever I have a contract dispute, for example, in the insurance industry, I get contracts all the time where I'm like, what the hell is this? You can get a contract where it feels like it's insulting to get. But at this point, when I get one of those contracts, I'll use those points to negotiate a better term or a better compensation towards me and my company. And a lot of people don't see it like that. Somebody puts a wall up, you're like, well, okay, these people don't want to work with me. I don't see the wall as an issue. I see the wall now as a negotiating factor. Most businesses will purposely show you the hardest conditions up front as a tactic to either accept it and they get the favorable, or as like almost like an onion, you start peeling it back until we
Mm-hmm.
both get into a good middle ground. But that's really what for me it's just been a learning experience. I wish I can translate reality to most people because I feel like when I used to be in most people's positions and you kind of hear this advice and you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? Try hard, do this, do that. Like, how am I supposed to do that if I don't have your opportunity? I think
Mm-hmm.
the best thing for those people what I would tell them is pick something. Stop
Mm-hmm.
every half a year into a year. Just try something different. That's okay up to a certain point. But if you really want to be a titan in your industry, you just have to pick something.
Mm-hmm.
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be an insurance salesman or owning an insurance agency selling health insurance, life insurance, car policies, house. Never in 1,000 years did I think that. I wanted to be a
Mm-hmm.
baseball player,
Oh, okay.
you know?
Yeah.
But thanks to the opportunity I was giving and the consistency I've placed in this industry, I know 90% more than most of my competitors just from the time being.
Right.
And that's what I
Yeah.
think people are missing.
Yeah, and I like how you describe when something comes up like a certain wall or barrier, most people have like a problem and it's creating in their lives rather than pushing through it and seeing an ultimately better outcome. We have to be able to like to make the best out, like you said, make the best out of those opportunities rather than seeing them as sources of defeat or insurmountable challenges. And I think that mindset is the biggest thing that makes the difference between taking what you got and making something successful or just reverting back into like, oh, victim, this sucks for me, and continue to go
The
spiral
the the,
downward
the victim mentality for me
mentality.
doesn't exist and it won't exist above race, opportunity, anything else, because at the end of the day, like I said in the beginning, I could have been in Cuba complaining, having absolutely nothing. Instead, here I am with a healthy life, more than enough time, and I get to make my time valuable as much as I want it to be. And I think part of the reason people are very victimized is just the group they're around and the the environment they place themselves as. For example, I am very anti listening to sad songs, either in the morning
Mm,
or whenever I feel like I need to do something productive, because it
mhm.
has this weird underlying effect that you don't even notice, where
Yeah.
you'll get into a bad
Fixing it.
mood or you'll get into the press and then you won't perform. And people don't realize this.
Right.
This is not only music, it's what you watch, the people
Mm,
you're around, the places that you
mhm.
go. So if you think you're doing bad because life is not fair, you don't have opportunity, change your setting.
Right.
Change who you listen to, change what you listen to. And I promise you, within a couple weeks, a month, your perspective is going to change. And the way life works is when it's talking about spirituality, whenever you actually put good energy into the world, I don't know why, it just always rewards you back. Not 100%, 500%, 1,000%.
Oh,
And that's just been my experience up to this point.
yeah, it's all an energy, it's all a vibe, right? You want music to be something empowering or adding energy into your life rather than, I mean, there's a time and place for sadness and everything too, but yeah, not before like trying to perform or do sales something. I come from a corporate sales background also. I've been in sales for 15 years and we're always playing the pump it up song or on the way to work. You got to get your
Oh,
your mindset
you
going.
should have seen me when I used to host my sales meetings. I would basically an hour before I would prepare myself with motivational speeches, movies, and by the time I got to that sales force, I was like a ticking time bomb in the sense of like just energy. And for me, it's always like, okay, how can I get people to understand that this energy I'm transmitting is not only to motivate them, but also to set them in their mind in this setting where now they can also transfer it to the customer and then convince them. Every book I've read, and at this point I've read over 50 to books on sales, it's always the same
Mm,
thing. Enter with logic, finish with emotion, right? So you enter with
mm,
logic so the person in front of you doesn't think you're lying to them or you're legit, and then you use emotions to take them to where you want them to as far as the sales. That's how all
right.
sales go. So it's been a cool journey to learn that. And as somebody who loves psychology and emotional awareness, selling has definitely been a place for me that I feel right at home.
Right, right. Yeah, totally, totally. I think that's what all of us who go through sales training, selling with empathy or how to actually, yeah, it's all very mindset driven. And the more we wrap our head around that, the more successful we can be. And yeah, so now bringing it back to, I know your podcast and these controversial topics that you're covering, and maybe we should talk a little bit about what you're, because obviously you're just from your life story, immigration and coming as a foreigner, creating things in the US, overcoming challenges, things that are going right now on in the political sphere. I mean, I also I come from a Muslim background, and so now everything is happening with like, you know, Israel and Palestine and I don't know, all kinds of controversial
You
and
know, if I
political
may
things are going
interject,
on right now.
if I
Yeah,
may interject, one of the things that I've seen from traveling the world, especially right now,
yeah.
I went to Dubai. It's like a life trip. What was it, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, yeah, for my
Oh
14
wow.
year anniversary with my wife?
Oh, okay.
And I gotta say, the Muslims right now in the world, they're just some of the most caring, respectful people I have ever met in my life. And I really think the reason why they've been able to garner so much respect is also the spear they use to punish people who don't respect them. And I feel like that's part of the reason why Christianity right now and even Judaism is at such a bad place in the world because they've made a mockery of religion in the sense of like there's no real respect of what's supposed to be haram if we're talking about
Yeah,
Muslim or
yeah.
not. And in Christianity and Judaism, they're mixing too much of the tolerant aspect of society where we're trying to get at and what is actually supposed to be followed in the actual religion.
Mhm.
So I'll just make that point. I'm really impressed by the Muslim world right now and their advances and it itself was an eye-opening moment for me because you would think for people who don't know Muslim people or have that Muslim phobia after like 9/11 especially, that all these people are anti-woman or this and that. What? You could dress however you want over there. It's the same
That's
thing.
right.
Based on what I learned is their Congress is also divided 50-50 between women. So it's incredible to see some of these Muslim countries where they're being able to do and accomplish, all while still fitting into the kind of like the modern era, modern world. So that's all I gotta
Right.
say.
Oh no, hey,
Shout out to the
that's
Muslim people.
yeah, that says a lot. And I mean, it is an interesting, well, anyone who comes from a Muslim background is presented with a lot of those issues daily with reconciling modern living, modernity, or whatever that might look like with the most traditional and those kind of cultural values, religious values that are, yeah. I think Islam is like the last frontier of religions that have just a massive amount of barriers to, like over around like what's going on there and how to actually and it's like
It's a weird
there's
thing, and I
yeah,
get it
there's a challenge
because
there.
to
Yeah.
some extent, I think we're all going to disagree. I mean, agree, sorry, that some of the practices of Islam, especially towards women, is not necessarily fair in a modern world. Part of the reason we didn't go to Qatar was because my wife didn't want to, more assimilate more to their lifestyle, which they have
Wow.
to dress up more, cover more, a
Yeah.
lot more stricter
It's like
as
all the
opposed to the
time.
UAE. So I
Yeah.
get that. But at the same time, we go back to what's going on in society right now, where since there is no respect, there is no line drawn, then you get to a point where anything goes and there's no real values and there's no real morals. And so it's all about moving the goalposts until what is the religion that you're worshiping? Is it real? Is it not? We
It's
might
a
as well just invent
hypocritical.
something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a real like Saudi's struggling also. They're getting backlash. I mean, they're getting positive and negative feedback because they're doing things like allowing alcohol in bars now and like well, first women were allowed to drive. That was good, but now it goes into these other areas where then they get a lot of backlash from both sides, from religious conservative sides as well as from
Well, you're never gonna win with
liberal
everybody,
sides.
regardless.
Never gonna win. Yeah, never gonna win. So it's a fine line to walk. And but yeah, I think what's going on right now in the Middle East in general is amplifying everything, even around Islam and Muslims, and people are actually converting even more now to Islam with what's going on in Palestine. Like there's things like that happening, and people are becoming even who aren't religious aligned with Muslim populations and things like that. So it's surfacing all of this stuff on a collective level a lot of times, regardless of your religion or where you're located in the world. So it's just one of the hot pockets right now in the world, right, with controversy and
I don't think it's gonna go away.
yeah,
I don't think it's
yeah,
gonna
I
go away
don't.
just because of the US's current agenda with the gender topic. There's a lot of confusion as to whether we should be proud to be man or woman, or we should be tolerant of, transgender people or non-binary people or the
Right.
pronoun people. So I feel like it's just gonna keep happening, and what it's going to do, especially here in the US, is going to keep driving conservative people more towards that goalpost of Muslims, especially men. I talked about this in one of my podcasts. I feel like men right now, we're losing our, especially here in the West, our identity as providers. That's really like what I feel most men just want to do. We don't want the glory. We just want to be felt useful, Like
Mm,
we're meant for something. And in my industry, in the insurance industry, in the healthcare industry, there is so many women in the executive positions right now. My father's company who employs over 300 employees, all the C-suites are all women, from the
mm.
CFO to the COOs to the CMOs, everybody in my company as well. And that's not a dig at women. Women are very, very good in executive positions, in office positions, in my opinion, because they have something to prove, number one. And number two, men for the most part, I'll say this from my perspective. I hate just having to sit in a computer on a desk all day and just work. I prefer having my time going outside, working out, playing with my kids. It's like it's very, and so some people might disagree with this, but what happens with men who no longer now have these high executive positions and women having these positions, but at the same time, like getting home and the dynamic now not being the same.
Yeah, it's
Usually the
like they're
breadwinner,
emasculated. Yeah, they're emasculated. Mm,
that's a real concept. And most people are not willing to listen because they think it's like a power grab. We're not saying it's a power grab. We're saying
mm,
if we don't have these real discussions, then eventually something's going to happen that's going to affect everybody. You know, men can both create or destroy societies. At the end of the day, when we both go to war, any country goes to war, the men are going to war. Not for equal rights, wherever men are physically stronger than women. And so we want to send our more physically capable people to go defend us. But if
mm,
we keep making our physically dependent, our defense weak, what do you think is
mm.
going to happen once there's a real problem? And that's my take on that issue as far as like what's going on with the gender issue here in the U.S. I think we need to take real steps as far as like talking what roles should actually be and not just confusing the crap out of people because right now
Mm.
a woman can be a man can be a woman.
Right.
It doesn't matter. And I think that's disingenuous because whenever we leave things up in the air and we don't actually give it a definition, that's when things really become problematic.
Well, yeah, I feel like there's a balancing, ultimate balancing effect that's happening and happened or is in the process where, yeah, feminism and those extremes kind of led us down and created certain distortions. And now it's coming where men are like it's flip-flopped, like masculine and feminine are all in distortions. And we're having to kind of come back and rebalance and move forward in ways. And that's happening, I think, when we talk about our own individual healing journeys, balancing our masculine and feminine energies, even within our own self. And that's also happening outside on the collective level where a lot of women, myself included, had spent way too much energy and time in our like distorted masculine state, like taking on doing like heavy overachievers, doing everything, and then coming back and then kind of leaning into more feminine. And what does that really mean? And now I'm still providing for my whole household, all this stuff. But like,
But I get
really,
it. I mean, if you're the
it's
breadwinner of the house,
yeah,
you
it's
also
happening.
want to feel like you're also making the big decisions, right? The problem with that is, and again, maybe it's not a problem to most couples, maybe it is a problem or not, is
Mm-hmm.
that I go back to saying this, if a man, at least for me, if I don't feel purpose in life, I don't even feel like I'm needed. I might
Mm.
as well discard me. The good thing is in my relationship that doesn't happen because my wife taught me how to work. It's the other way around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my
Good.
wife is a workaholic. We work together. And so for me, it hasn't been an issue because I just can't wake up and not do something. But I can see this in the community that I live in, the friends that I have, the people that I know, where it is happening. And I have a bunch of men in my life that you might as well be useless. They don't know what
Mm.
to do,
Right.
you know?
I have that. I know I'm familiar with that syndrome too of just like I said, the men being kind of in an emasculated state, and it's not something that is to be like we're not supposed to be in competition, men and women, to like you said, it's not a power grab, but it creates that sort of problem. And I think it takes a lot of healing in order to actually come out the other end of it and be in a healthy, like, divine masculine or divine feminine. People talk about that in spirituality, right? What does that really look like? It's not controlling the woman or force. It's like it's all about kind of achieving and getting to the places of higher consciousness where we're able to just move past a lot of those issues that have come up because of the maybe the feminist movement, maybe the toxic masculinity. All of it has kind of compounded to get us to where we are here.
But it's also very hard
Yeah,
to get where you're getting to because I feel like now
yeah.
more than ever, the world has this weird thing where it's like running away from spirituality, but at the same time, running away from spirituality is just making it worse and making these kind of like polarizing sides where it's like I'm
Hmm.
very anti-religion, I'm now extremely religious, right? There's no longer like people in the middle, it feels like
It's
everything's
polarity. Yeah. The duality. It's the same thing within the religion. You'll have the ultra conservative, like we were just talking about the Middle East, where it's like that's getting more and more like unacceptable to do any of this. And then there's the other. So it's like we're pulling and pulling like this until we like
That's
come
why
back.
that's why
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay in the middle as much as possible,
Stay in the
because
middle.
I wanna hopefully be that glue, that gum. And my view is specifically on gender and sex and the world we have right now. It's probably gonna rub most people in the liberal and progressive side the wrong way, because they're gonna think I'm just saying these topics to just eliminate them and not want them in existence. That's not the case. For me, is it's we need to define what exactly you want, what exactly I want, so then we can make a fair compromises for everybody, or else we're gonna keep fighting each other, and all that's gonna happen is just gonna create more division, more hate, more chaos, and that's what I'm trying to avoid, because it feels like the system feeds on that chaos.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're describing is like some like healthy boundary. Like it's different to create healthy boundaries are not an attack, right? It's like you're expressing yourself authentically to come to a healthy boundary of this is what I
I
think.
mean,
And then yeah.
what is a Democrat nowadays? What is a Republican nowadays?
Mm,
I voted Democrat for Obama and Hillary, and I voted Trump last time. That's the
mm.
truth. I'm not gonna lie. So does that make me a bad person just because I voted for somebody who I thought was the person adequate for me and my family at the time? I really don't think so. I think it's all about what aligns us to our necessities at the moment. And once again, we just got to come to the table. If you think just because I voted for Trump one time, I'm a horrible person, and if because you're a Democrat, if you think I voted for Hillary and you're a Republican and you think I'm a horrible person, then you are forming the problem that I'm trying to fix,
Yeah.
which is
I think
stop blaming us.
I think you're in the position of a lot of people where you just it's a hit or miss, it's this or that. You don't really it's not really no one wants to be judged for what decisions they're having to make at those times because we're all just doing the best we can with the information given, right? Yeah, but hey, I love the sounds of I mean, I've listened to little snippets of your podcast and I definitely think it's a great show for people who are getting multiple views or two sides of the coin or coming to understand things in a different way. Where can people find you, Luis? Where's the best place for people to go if they're interested to listen to your podcast? I know you're on YouTube, and I know you might have a website too. Or where do people go, like as far as
So
if
if
they
you
want
want to
to learn
listen
more?
to me, definitely the podcast Lou Living Life
Lou Live in Life.
on YouTube, and we do post like clips on my Instagram and on my
Hmm,
TikTok as well, which I'll
okay,
have my editor send you the links.
awesome.
As far as like reaching me personally, if you actually want to talk to me, I think the best way is probably gonna be my Instagram. That's usually what I check the most for messages. Um, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm on Spotify. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not active replying or. For me, it's just like I'm a very open person. Like if you want to have a conversation with me, I have no problem. If you want to ask me questions, I have absolutely no problem. That's what I'm down for.
Yeah,
Sharing my information, because the opportunity I've been presented with in my life has definitely helped me be successful. So I'm always willing to also do the same for somebody else. And hopefully that pays it back. Maybe not to me, but somebody else that needs it. That's all I care about.
totally. Yeah, totally. And it sounds like you'd be a great person to bring on if people have other shows and whatnot. It sounds like you're doing more of this interview and podcasting stuff yourself. So that's awesome. And yeah, I'm so grateful that we got to kind of dive in a little bit, share more of your story, get it out to the world. That's what I'm here for. I love to help anyone who's got a great story to share and who've gone through major transitions and transformation, spiritual journey, whatever that might look like. We're all on it
I will
individually.
share with you one last spiritual thing,
Oh
and
yeah,
I'll tell you why I'm so scared of the spiritual. So
scared of
yeah, I'm scared of the spiritual
uh,
side, and I'll tell you why. Part of me growing up as an immigrant, I got bullied a lot, especially in middle school. In New York, I went to one of the roughest middle schools. It's called Elizabeth Blackwell Middle School. I'll never forget this. We would have juvenile kids bus to my school in the morning from jail, and then at the end of the day, they would take them back. But so I saw kids get stabbed. I saw coke.
oh my God.
I saw guns. All in my middle school. I got highly bullied because I committed the cardinal sin of anybody being in a jail setting, which is in the first day a kid threw at the teacher something, and the teacher looked back and said, "Who was it?" Me being a good little boy, I said, "It's that person."
Oh shit.
And so yeah, my middle school was rough to the point where I got very depressed. I didn't feel like even being worth anything. And so now as an adult, I tried the Wim Hof method of breathing, and it scared the crap out of me once I saw, the real little story, I saw an eye. I got really deep into the breathing, and I saw an eye open, look back at me, scare the crap out of me, and that was the last time I did it.
And he closed the door.
And I was like, you know what? I don't know what demons are hiding there. I don't want to meet you
Oh,
guys. We'll see each other when I die. But
all
and,
right.
and I
Well,
think that's part of the spiritual issue. We really have to face the demons before we find the light. And that's been my issue. It's very, very hard for me, at
face
least.
those demons. Yeah, face those. We'll get you on some psilocybin next and see how that goes. DMT trip. Yeah, that's for another time. Well, you go do that, and then we'll circle back and see how your spiritual awakening starts coming along.
For all claiming I am in the industry, the insurance industry, I am not going to participate in drugs. But you can do some breathing, which is natural, and it'll do just the same. I can give you that reference.
Yeah, get the Wim Hof method in your life.
There it is.
Right. All right, Luis, I love it. Thank you so much for being here. And I know we went over, but you have so many great stories, and I feel like we could talk for hours going back and forth with these different topics. I mean, I'd love to have you back in the future. We could talk more. I don't know what's going on politically or anything
maybe
like
a debate,
that.
something like that. I've always wanted to participate in a debate.
Go to the debate club. Yeah. But either way, just stay in touch. And I hope everyone who listens to this episode, they can come find you, listen to your show. And yeah, just help make the world a better place is what we're all trying to do, right?
I love that you hosted me, and would love to come back anytime.
Yeah, amazing. All right. Thank you, Luis. We'll see you next time. Okay. Have a great day, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.